Hello, everyone. This is Garen with Dark Forged Light. If you notice, there's no intro music because I just bought a new phone, so I haven't moved over any of my files yet. Uh, so, uh, that'll have to wait until next time for me to do that. Today, what we're going to be talking about is I wanted to kind of elaborate on those three key concepts that we had going on the last time that I kind of failed to mention, like I said I would. The Newton's laws of motion and how they apply to mental health. Kind of thought we'd tap into that today. So we'll get on to it. Newton's first law, for those who failed science, out of control. Very cool. I always have technical difficulties at the very beginning. I'll have to work on that. Anyway, the very first law of motion states that an object at rest remains at rest until otherwise acted upon. So, for all those that caught the last podcast, I talked a lot about my past and how that affected me and how that weighed on me and how things translated there. So, what we're going to be talking about is step one, the first rule, the first law of motion. So, when we're young and we're first born and nothing has happened to us yet, our heart hasn't been broken yet, we still have hope for humanity, things like that, we have this tendency of not in, like, if our brain isn't acted upon, we don't learn anything, right? If nothing has happened to us, if none of those things happened, it just, there's stagnantness, I guess. Our brain has nowhere to go, nowhere to learn, nothing to do. So let's apply some force to that. You have your heart broken. That puts the mind into motion, and we start to pick up concepts and themes, and we start to kind of learn from there. Now our mind's in motion. Otherwise, it was just there. If nothing bad ever happens to us, we will never grow. That's the way our brain works. So, be it right, wrong, or indifferent, everything that has ever happened to us culminates into who we are today, if that makes any sense. So, if you didn't fail that test, you wouldn't have made the decision to study harder, and you wouldn't have learned how to pass that test. And that applied to other things. If your heart wasn't broken, then, other things would have happened. That's why pain and failure are the two best teachers we ever run across. It's because it puts our mind in motion, and and it will continue to be in motion until otherwise acted upon. So depression and things like that backswing, anxiety, all of those other things that happen because our brain was in motion to begin with. We have to figure out what sent it in motion and how to apply a counter force to stop it from going in that direction. And only then can we properly take care of those things, right? So we'll move on to the second law. Every action has an equal and opposite reaction. This is a really easy concept to get a hold of. You just have to figure out how to apply it. Also, I told the cigar merchant that I'd give a shout out to him here in Blue Springs. That's where I get my tobacco from. Very good group of guys. Always help me out. I go in there and I get a new flavor. I just kind of told him I'd give him a shout out. So there that is, and that's out of the way. Second law of motion. This is a sticky one. Generally, the easiest example would be sexually related. Okay, so if we get some sort of trauma in our life based sexually, what it does is you'll have an equal and opposite reaction to whatever abuse that you encountered or ran across, right? So if you were paying attention to my story while I was on here, I disclosed a lot of my past and things that I try to do to kind of fix the scenarios that I was in. The first person to ever break my heart cheated on me 38 times, and that was a lot. And I kind of ran into this pattern of everybody that I got with would cheat on me, and then I would end up cheating on them for vengeful purposes. I've never really cheated on somebody just because. It's always a symptom of something deeper wrong with the relationship. In the story that I was talking about, though, we ended up opening up our marriage, and permissions were granted, as it were. So that's that equal and opposite reaction that I'm talking about, right? So I got tired of being cheated on, tired of felt like I wasn't enough. So what I did was I made that a thing to that allegedly I enjoyed it. And that very first, the very first episode that I did, I kind of mentioned that, people have this habit of rewiring pain into pleasure. And that's something that's very frequent. And you do it with several different things. You get so tired of being hurt and so tired of, just being the short end of the stick that you start rewiring things and you start making it to where you want those things to happen, because now instead of it being a bad thing, now it's an enjoyable thing. So that's an example of that equal and opposite reaction. I rewired my brain to be like, this is something that I want in my relationship. It was a band-aid, granted, and it took me forever to figure out that I've just leached all the intimacy out, all the important stuff in a relationship. I've taken that out just so I wasn't in competition with other people, which that's not a normal function of a relationship. You don't, you shouldn't have to compete with anybody for your spouse's attention. That's not why you got with the person. That's not why you wanted to remain with that person. It took me a while to figure out, hey, I want somebody for me, and only me. I want somebody to be my peace. And so before that came along, I had that equal and opposite reaction of swinging that pendulum the other way. And so that's kind of where I developed this theory of how we could rewire the brain to begin with, is because you kind of start to see how our brains are different kinds of software. And with just a flick of the wrist and a rewrite, you could change the way you perceive reality. And I know that sounds crazy, especially when I laid it down in a black and white format like that. But it is possible because your brain does it every day on its own. You just have to learn how to control it and figure it out. And you have to also figure out what the origin of that rewrite came from. And I'm going to hold off on that third law for a second, because it's a little bit has a little bit more to do with me right now than it does my backstory. But when we get into these things and we start talking about, I've got a lot of baggage. Everybody has baggage. If you're above the age of 18, you got baggage. Our 17-year-old, about to be 18, has baggage. Everybody has baggage. It doesn't matter who you are, because things have happened to us. And so we need to start getting into the habit of stop being worried about our baggage. Everybody's got it. It's just, what kind of baggage do I want to deal with? So when you find that person that, you can deal with their baggage, they become your peace. And as long as their baggage isn't yours to carry. So we're going to move on to the third law of motion. Yeah. What goes up must come down, right? Pretty standard. This one's a little bit different, and it's a little bit trickier because what goes down must also come up. You hear a lot of symbolism and analogies and metaphors of, it can't rain all the time. Um, the sun will come back out. And so in our darkest moments, and I just got out of a little bit of depression myself. I'm stuck in a house that, for all intents and purposes, I feel lied to get into it. We bought it. We were told that the foundation was fixed. It's not. We've got leaks coming through the walls. And for some reason, part of it's even been covered up. I haven't even cracked open the worst part of it. I feel like I've been lied to by my best friend who said I need help. He didn't. And it was rough because now I'm freakishly overwhelmed with this house. And, I don't even have a place to start. So it's raining now, metaphorically. Well, it's not going to stay that way. And it can't stay that way. It's physically impossible for it to just rain forevermore. The sun comes back out. And when the sun comes back out, I could start seeing that this is workable. I didn't want to deal with it. I mean, nobody wants to all of a sudden figure out that, 16, 17 gallons of water are just pouring out of your basement when it trickles outside. It's baffling. It's physically impossible for the amount of water that's coming through the wall. I'm still kind of sketchy on it. But I bet you I could fill that crack. We'll get it done. We have to. We can't just keep having water in our basement. That's crazy. Now I am going to be looking into attorneys, granted, because I was told that this basement was fixed and it's not. And I got the old, oh, well, welcome to being a homeowner. Well, homeowners normally don't deal with a small river going through their laundry room the first time it rains after they buy the house. I kind of wanted a little bit different of an answer, some guidance there. Neither here nor there. But we can't let these things just continually impact us and bring us down. Because what ends up happening is we lock up. And I'm still trying to get through it. But if anything goes wrong with this house at any given point in time, I don't care how easy it is. Once something else goes wrong, I freak out. And I'm not a big freaker outer. I'll let it ride. I mean, normally I look at things logically. The moment that something else goes wrong, I cannot see the forest for the trees. Immediately I get locked up into, I've got to get a new breaker box. I've got to fix the wall. I've got to fix the sunroom. I've got to fix the backyard. I've got to fix the front yard. I've got to fix the driveway. I've got to fix the doors. Without understanding that, I could just take 15 minutes, fix this small thing, and move about my day. Because immediately I am so overwhelmed. And it's very hard to break that cycle and to get out of it and to step out of those shoes and be like, oh, well, hold on. Well, let's just... I mean, you're going to have to take care of it. That's what you're going to have to do. I just recently ran into, and I can't even remember where the quote came from. It was a video that I watched. A person said, hey, would you be happy if I gave you $1 million right now? Like, the guy's like, yeah, absolutely. I'd be ecstatic. And it's like, all right, cool. What about 10 million? He's like, oh yeah, I'd love that. He's like, well, what if I gave you the 10 million and told you wouldn't wake up the next day? Well, no, I wouldn't be keen on that. And he's like, okay, so what you're saying is that waking up tomorrow is worth more to you than the $10 million. Like, yeah, absolutely. It's like, why don't you think that way when you woke up this morning? And I've never thought about that. I've never actually put that into a perspective. Every day that we wake up, everything else is manageable. It doesn't matter how much money we have in the world. Waking up, gives us a chance to just completely screw up a day. True. It also gives us a chance to succeed at whatever it is we're doing. And if you jack up that day, you could just wake up tomorrow and maybe even succeed that day. Or you can make tomorrow worse. It's actually your choice. From the moment you open your eyes, you get to choose how the day is going to go. But the first step is opening your eyes. And if you don't do that, well, then you don't have a whole lot to worry about, I guess. But the fact of the matter is yeah, like my life could only get so bad with this house that we're in. We're in a house. You know, there's millions of people that are homeless. And I'm sitting here complaining that I've got to fill a crack. You know, it's what goes up must come down, and what goes down must come up. And I'm not saying it's easy. It's life isn't designed to be easy at any given point in time. Life is hard and it sucks. But it's life. The experiences I have put me in this chair sitting here talking to you. Um, Not that I'm a person that, you know, should be giving oodles of advice, but at least I'm trying, you know, and I'm trying to do some good in this world. And if everybody else got up in the morning and they opened their eyes and they got up out of bed and they got dressed and they went outside and tried to do something good for the world and not just for themselves, the world would be a hell of a place. So do what you can when you can. I know that I was surrounded by negative people for the longest time. I got people in my life that wanted to use me for their own ends, use me for their own purposes. They wanted to walk on me. And what I found out finally, and it took me forever, is that I get to pick and choose who's in my life. I get to literally start every day being like, who do I let be included in my life? And some of those people had to go. When you do somebody wrong and you don't apologize for that, that shows that person how much you value them. And what I found is as people started crossing boundaries with me, and I'm like, hey, that's not going to work for me. That right there, that's not going to work for me. You need to fix that. And they were uninterested in fixing it. Like it, and we're talking situations that are like, just, dude, I'm sorry, I don't know what I was thinking. You know, yeah, I mean, you don't really even have to explain things. Just, I'm sorry. An effort. People need to start realizing, stop giving people energy when they're not even worth your time. And that's a very hard pill for a lot of people to swallow, because we get all of that color in this photo that I keep talking about, this perception of reality. We get all this color and all these emotional bonds and these you know, relationships with people, and they get grandfathered in, and you just keep them around and they drain you. And then when something goes wrong on your end or whatever, those people just bail on you. Stop keeping those people around. They're leeches, and they will. And I'm a big energy fanatic. I feel as though, and I'm not going to get too spiritual or talk about my belief system, because I don't with anybody, and there's a reason for that. But I believe that there is an energy, and I feel like when people just sit there and they suck that out of you, it damages your mental state, and your problems increase tenfold by just somebody stagnantly kind of just sitting there using you constantly. And I've got a couple friends now that I had somebody call me, what was it, day before yesterday? Day before yesterday, to just see how I was doing. Didn't want anything. Just to say hi and see how things were going. How's the house? What's going on with the kids? Those are the people that we need to have in our life. And we need to stop handing people energy and giving ourselves to people that aren't even worth time or effort. And trust me, it was very hard for me to figure that out because I've kept people around for way longer than they should be. It's just kind of my nature. Um, when I care about somebody, I care about them, and that's a one-way street for me. I don't believe in caring for somebody because I could get something out of it. Um, I don't. I'm not friends with somebody because of what they could do. None of that. I care for you because I care for you. End of story. And the more and as time went on, I noticed a lot of people. I'm just handing out energy like I'm Oprah Winfrey, and it put me in a position where at my darkest time, I had nobody to fall back on, and so it took a little bit. The person that I'm with now, my wife, she bought so much equipment on a whim. I think anybody that knows me knows that I quit things pretty quickly. I'll get into a mood where I like, well, the harmonica, which I still want to play. Don't get me wrong, I really want to play the harmonica, but I also forget that I want to play the harmonica. You know, I was kind of planning on just doing this whole thing, and if you look back at my podcast, I've got this one video where I'm explaining the concept, and it's done from my laptop. And the laptop is several years old. I just kind of thought I was going to do that. Um, all of a sudden, I'm getting packages in the mail of microphones, webcam, and a soundboard, and I didn't even ask because she believes in me and she wants to support me. Um, she didn't want anything in return for that, and I felt horrible because I mean we had well shit, it was her birthday coming up. She shouldn't have been getting me anything. Um, and that's what I'm talking about. Because I started seeking energy in a different light. Um, I ran across her by happenstance. I don't if I had to replicate it again, I don't think that I could. It was a random amount of events that culminated into her and I getting together in a perfect way. Um, and I assume it's you. Several things could have happened like that, like the beginning of the universe, just random events that all culminated into one thing, and this one event that put life on this planet. And that's the way it feels for me. Um, I don't believe in magic because I'm an adult, but that's a miracle for me. Every day I wake up and I'm glad I'm here in this house that's slightly falling apart. And in about 5 years, hopefully, um, we can look back on this moment and laugh. Hopefully, I'm hoping that we get to the part where we laugh about this. I would like to get to that as soon as possible, honestly, where this was funny because right now, not so funny. Not really. Um, but my mom has been talking to me, and I'm super positive about getting this house fixed up. It's not actually going to take a lot. It's that overwhelming feeling that I'm talking about. So, that's pretty much all I got for tonight. If we're being honest, I just kind of wanted to clear up my thoughts on the three laws of motion because I think they're very interesting ideas. You could apply them to several different things. There's, I gave a couple examples, but in any sense of trauma, look for something that's an equal and opposite reaction, and it's probably the trigger. That's 100% when you go back through your past and you're trying to figure out what's wrong with you as an adult, because we all do it. It's something that has keynotes of however it's manifesting. And then we go back and we try to rewire that whole thing and try to get back to good. And it's difficult sometimes. Sometimes it's not. And sometimes you just think it's difficult when it's really easy. And that thinking that it's difficult makes it hard as hell. You know? So, well, that's going to be it for this week's edition of Dark Forge Light. I'm your host, Garen, and I will see you next week at 7 p.m. You guys have a good night. Love y'all.